Every single week, we go through and rank about 30 of these running backs just for about 5 of them to actually score fantasy points. But let's go through. Let's try to find those 5 this week. Let's try to find the James Robinson for week 4. But of course, before we get into it, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And because we've had so much support, I'm going to continue to live stream every single day until the end of the season. So make sure you hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you're able to come out to our live streams. And if you can't get your questions answered in our live streams, just feel free to ask them down there in the comment section. I'm going to try to answer at least about 200 of those comments myself. And last but not least, you know this video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, where you can get into weekly fantasy football drafts. And on top of that, you can go check out all these cool player props. But the best thing about it is if you use promo code FLOCK, they match your first deposit dollar for dollar at $200. So it's free for you to try out. And also only for people who use promo code FLOCK, you are going to get this Cooper Kupp line this weekend at half a receiving yard, where you can go through and you can take that over. But thank you again. Let's dive right in and let's talk about Jonathan Taylor, CMC 1 and 2. What am I supposed to say? JT, Christian McCaffrey, one of the very few players actually getting 20 plus touches a game. Matchups aren't too bad going up against Tennessee and Arizona, kind of whatever. The only thing I think there's really to look at with these two running backs is Christian McCaffrey with Baker Mayfield, where Baker Mayfield thinks that Christian McCaffrey can't catch the football. Like, what the hell? Why are you not getting 8 targets a game from CMC at this point? But maybe this is something that changes going forward. All I know is these guys are top tier options every week. And then someone in his own tier at this point is going to be Saquon Barkley at 3. Honestly, you may be able to make the argument that Saquon Barkley should be that tier 1 running back because everybody else, and I repeat, everybody else is disappointing. Everybody else has massive red flags. But Saquon Barkley himself, while he's playing in an offense that has a very bad offensive line, a very bad offense overall, given his usage as a pass catcher, and given the fact that almost no other running back even sees the field for the New York Giants, you'd have to be very excited about Saquon Barkley here at 3. Great matchup as well going up against the Bears, where this will be one of those games where the Giants could potentially win. I think it's going to be a very close game overall. But now dropping down to our 3rd tier, we are going to have a whole lot of running backs that I have no idea what to do with. Let's go Derrick Henry at 4. With Derrick Henry at 4, going up against the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, these are 2 teams that have been very disappointing so far this season. What's interesting to see is they actually got Derrick Henry more involved as a pass catcher this past week. Like, it was awkward. I think Derrick Henry had 5 receptions. If you were watching the game, they showed some of these on Red Zone. You saw that Derrick Henry would go out there for a screen, catch the ball, immediately get tackled 2 yards down the line of scrimmage. But I still think that this is a running back that still seeing every single touch out of the backfield, at least on 1st and 2nd down. And if they are now getting involved more as a pass catcher, despite the clear red flags we talked about all season and in the offseason, still probably a top 5 guy. And then our next guy at 5, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, 4 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. And also a great matchup going up against the Atlanta Falcons. I know a lot of people are probably a little bit more excited about Chubb, but I will say Kareem Hunt's role's not going anywhere. We've seen Hunt have the same exact role week 1, week 2, week 3. Maybe Kareem Hunt's the guy that scores the touchdown this week. And if that happens, because Nick Chubb last week saw 0 receptions, he doesn't have the receiving floor to be able to be up there inside the top 3 with someone like Saquon Barkley. And now our next running back at 6 here, someone that everybody is full-blown panicking on. I understand why. Austin Ekeler. Austin Ekeler had less rushing yards than Sony Michel this past week. It was disgusting. He has saved his week over the past 2 with just the raw targets out of the backfield, the receptions that he's been receiving. But I will say, this could potentially go away. If we get Keenan Allen back here, Keenan Allen getting his usual 10 plus targets, I don't know how confident we are with Austin Ekeler to continue to have this level of target share. Very interesting spot in general. But Joe Mixon at 7. Joe Mixon, someone that I was all in on last week. I thought Mixon going up against the Jets, it was a get-right game for the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought he was going to be able to go for 100 total yards and a touchdown. But no, he splits the backfield with Samaje Perine. Samaje Perine gets that touch at the goal line. Ended up being a reception here. I don't know. Going up against the Miami Dolphins, in my opinion, this may be the most exciting game of the week. I mean, on Thursday night, we're actually going to have a very good game here. Just please get Jalen Waddle in this game. Then we are going to have Leonard Fournette at 8 with Fournette. Very bad offensive line. But I think this offense is going to be better this week. Maybe Leonard Fournette doesn't have as many touches, but I think he's going to be much more efficient, knowing that this is a situation where we are getting Mike Evans back. Hopefully we get either one of Julio Jones or Chris Godwin, where Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are able to pick up first downs. They're able to put points up on the board. They're able to have more trips to the red zone. So I think Leonard Fournette probably scores more points per touch, has fewer touches overall as the efficiency improves in the offense. But because they're going to have those additional weapons, you just don't have to get as many raw touches to Leonard Fournette. Going up against Kansas City, though, I think this game could be a very high-scoring contest. Now, going over to our next tier, we are going to have Dalvin Cook at 9. With Dalvin Cook, as it stands, looks like he's playing this weekend. Now, he's going to be wearing a brace. I don't necessarily think that we can assume that he has his usual workload. So rest of season, if I was ranking these running backs, rest of season, I think you could make the argument that Dalvin Cook may all the way be up there at 4, but it's a bad matchup against the New Orleans Saints. He could possibly be limited at the same time. So it's very hard to get that excited about Dalvin Cook. And then our next running back here is going to be someone else that's very disappointing. Let's go over and look at Alvin Kamara. All these 2017 running backs, all these guys that are 27 years old, y'all know we talked about the age cliff all offseason. They are disappointing. I mean, with Alvin Kamara going up against Minnesota, this is a running back that had 15 carries as well as 7 targets out of the backfield this past week. So I think that while, yes, the production's been down, the workload's exactly what you want to see. I think we get a bounce back spot for Alvin Kamara. Definitely a top 10 running back, a must-start guy for you, especially if one of Jarvis Landry or Michael Thomas misses this game. Now, our next guy in this tier is going to be Naji Harris. Great matchup against the Jets. Pittsburgh looks horrendous. Najee Harris, clearly not the same running back he was a year ago. He's still pretty much the equivalent of David Montgomery, where he's a running back in a very bad offense. But when he's active, he's going to get pretty much every touch in the backfield, including receiving down usage. He's going up against the New York Jets. I know that the Jets have been decent against running backs so far this season, but I think the issue that's been holding back Najee Harris is just the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had such a hard time putting points up on the board. I think this is one of the very few games that they don't have that issue going up against the Jets. Now, our last running back in this tier, someone else very similar to Joe Mixon. I was way too excited about last week. Javonte Williams. Now, this is probably going to be the closest situation I am monitoring this week, because back in week 2, you had Javonte Williams looking like he was taking over the backfield, Melvin Gordon seeing his role shrink, Mike Boone not getting involved. However, in week 3, the script flipped. Javonte Williams went from expanding his role in this offense to seeing less than 50% of the snaps in this backfield. I don't know why this happened. I don't know how this happened. I don't know what we can expect going forward. I do think that the Denver Broncos offense is going to get better as the season goes on. And with Javonte Williams, I don't know. In my opinion, he looks like the best running back here. I thought that he would be seeing 60, 70% of the snaps at this point, which he did in week 2. But in week 3, it just didn't happen. So I really want to monitor the usage for these Denver Broncos running backs this week. And now going down to our next tier at 13 here, we are going to have Aaron Jones. With Aaron Jones, we've already discussed this. I mean, I loved him coming into the season. Looking at the role he's going to have as a pass catcher, we know Davante Adams, the red zone role he's going to have as well. I thought Aaron Jones was a must-draft guy. I thought what you wanted to do in round 1 is go take your Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, go get that elite level receiver, and then following it up with Aaron Jones in the second. But while Aaron Jones has been productive, A.J. Dillon has 8 more touches so far this season. Up until now, Aaron Jones has been the running back that's had the role in the red zone. But maybe this changes. And it's also a pretty tough matchup going up against the New England Patriots. So I don't love this spot for Aaron Jones. And our next running back, James Conner, going up against Carolina. Carolina just held Alvin Kamara in check, but with James Conner, I know he's been very disappointing so far this season. We have to keep in mind the context. Week 1 was not a competitive game at all against Kansas City Chiefs. Week 2, he got injured halfway through the game. Week 3, we didn't even know if he was going to play. He was a limited player, but despite all of this, he's been averaging 5 targets a week. I think this offense is better going forward. I think you're going to be really excited when we get Hopkins back in. But for now, I still want to rank James Conner as that low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2. Now, our next guy is going to be James Robinson going up against Philadelphia. Love James Robinson. I think at this point, if you're going to be making a rest of season ranking, we probably need to move James Robinson above this. I think we disrespected James Robinson and this entire Jacksonville Jaguars team coming into this season. Now, I will say, to be fair, while James Robinson has been crushing it, he's been playing in back-to-back games where the Jacksonville Jaguars beat down the Indianapolis Colts. Then they beat down the Los Angeles Chargers. Here it's a little bit of a different situation going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, where Philly has been fantastic, especially this Philadelphia Eagles defense. So maybe we see some regression for James Conner overall. I think it's a very tough matchup for James Robinson. Now going over to our next guy is going to be Jamal Williams. With Jamal Williams, I know we had a lot of people asking why he wasn't on our waiver wire video. The reason he wasn't on our waiver wire video is we only include players that are rostered in 50% or less of your leagues. Jamal Williams rostered in the majority, but if somehow, some way you had the chance to pick up Jamal Williams this week, of course, that is so exciting. We've clearly seen him as a running back used in the red zone, but what's also very exciting about Jamal Williams here is this is a running back that's not great at catching the football, but he can do it. It's not like he's Damien Harris here. So I think you can be very excited about Jamal Williams, and also it's going to be a great matchup going up against the Seattle Seahawks. We just saw Seattle give up a big day against the run, and at the same time, you're looking at Jamal Williams as a running back that's probably not going to be playing on a team that leads the majority of games, but this one, they should. Now, our next guy is going to be Cordell Patterson. With Patterson, my favorite stat this year, by far and away my favorite stat, is Cordell Patterson has more rushing yards than Justin Fields has passing yards. It's not a great matchup going up against Cleveland. Tyler Algier is playing in a 50-50 backfield split. Patterson, he's going to get involved as a pass catcher. I don't like the matchup. I know he had a great week this past week. He's top 5 in the NFL in rushing yards right now. Honestly, I think he's actually top 3. He's in a great situation, just knowing the involvement he has in this offense. Don't love the matchup, though. Now, our next guy leading off our next tier is going to be A.J. Dillon going up against the New England Patriots. With A.J. Dillon, as I've discussed, we disrespected him coming into this season. I thought, don't draft A.J. Dillon round 5, get Kareem Hunt round 9. They're the same guy, and I was so horribly wrong, where A.J. Dillon is getting involved as a pass catcher. He has 12 targets this year compared to Aaron Jones at 12. He has 8 more carries than Aaron Jones as well. So over the past 2 weeks, you've had Aaron Jones with the red zone role, but if something were to change, I think A.J. Dillon's a very appealing option. I think that if you're looking at our rest of season rankings, he's going to be higher than this, but the issue is I don't love the matchup going up against New England. And now our next running back going to be Khalil Herbert. With Khalil Herbert, more rushing yards this past week against the Houston Texans than David Montgomery has ever seen in his entire NFL career. Now, at the same time, I'm going to be hesitant to rank him aggressively because we don't know if David Montgomery is going to be playing. This is going to be a situation that we have to continue to monitor. With that being said, we will give you our update later on in the week. And if David Montgomery is listed as out, I think you'd move Khalil Herbert to the tier above this one. And now our next running back going to be Antonio Gibson at 20. With Gibson, still a must-start mid to low-end running back 2 every single week. I still think that he's going to be a sell-high candidate, knowing that Brian Robinson will be back in about 2 to 3 weeks here. But still, I mean, I think if we're looking at Gibson, he has the involvement as a pass catcher. It is a very tough matchup, though. This Dallas Cowboys defense has been fantastic so far this season. Like we've discussed, I mean, we talked about this a lot last week, but I still want to say this out loud this week. Washington's not going to be as good of an offense as what they were at the very beginning of the season. I mean, Carson Wentz was averaging over 300 passing yards a game. Carson Wentz was the number 2 quarterback in the NFL at passing yards during the first 2 weeks. He's going to fall back down to earth. This entire offense is. There's a lot of competition for touches. It's a tough matchup as well. So we are going to be maybe a little bit lower on Gibson than a lot of others. Now, our next guy is going to be Jeff Wilson, 21. With Jeff Wilson, another tough matchup going up against the Rams here. I mean, he did have involvement as a pass catcher with 3 receptions a week ago with Jeff Wilson Jr. Clearly the starting running back by a mile over Jordan Mason right now. Despite Jordan Mason having an elite name, it looks like he's not someone that we're going to have to be worried about currently for the Jeff Wilson Jr. workload. I'm just worried about the matchup. I'm worried that this 49ers offense doesn't look great either. But still, I think you can play him as that low-end running back too. And now our next guy is going to be Miles Sanders at 22. With Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell is actually taking a step back in this offense, which you would think that's a very bullish news for Miles Sanders. But the issue is Boston Scott's taking that step forward. So he's still in a committee year. You're still getting Jalen Hurts stealing the majority of these rushing touchdowns. Hopefully we get something else, but I also don't love the matchup against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has combined to allow 10 points scored over the past 2 weeks this season. So I still think Philly wins this game. I still think that Philly is going to be the better team here, but you don't love the matchup. Now, our next tier is going to be Damien Pierce at 23. I know people are going to be surprised by this because we probably had Damien Pierce ranked higher than this a week ago. But a week ago, it was a much better situation. He was going to play the Chicago Bears. We've talked about this with Damien Pierce, but he's not the running back getting involved as the passing down option so far this season in Houston. So if we're looking at Damien Pierce, we probably want him in games where his team's actually going to be winning. I don't think they have a shot to be winning against the Los Angeles Chargers. I am worried that this is not going to be the matchup for him, not going to be the game script for him. Now, our next guy is going to be Ramondre Stevenson, 24. We'll throw Damien Harris here at 25 as well. I mean, back-to-back running backs that, as we've discussed, are more appealing with the Ty Montgomery injury, especially Ramondre Stevenson, who continues to expand his role as a rusher and a receiver in this backfield. He scored the touchdown this past week, so I think a lot of people are going to now have him on their radar. This is about where we've ranked these guys ever since Ty Montgomery went down, though. And now our next RB is going to be Josh Jacobs, 26. Jacobs going up against the Denver Broncos. I mean, this is an option that is clearly getting every single touch on first and second down. Also somewhat being involved as a receiver here. Now, I will say that with Josh Jacobs, the Raiders have been very bad, and this is a horrendous matchup. Denver's had a great defense so far every single week this year. This is why Russell Wilson looks so damn bad. However, the Denver Broncos are 2-1 currently. So I don't like the matchup for Jacobs. But our last running back, Kareem Hunt, I mean, this is kind of always where you expect Hunt to be. Borderline, low-end running back too. But he has upside for more if Nick Chubb were to go down. I mean, he has had the same role throughout the entire year. It's a good matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. So if you were super excited after Kareem Hunt scored the touchdowns week 1, you should be just as excited now. But in reality, I mean, I think this role has just remained constant. The only thing that's going to really affect where we rank Kareem Hunt is if we have an injury to Nick Chubb, then obviously we'll see that massive spike. But now our last tier being led off with Breece Hall against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know we're probably being too aggressive. I get it. But Breece Hall finally saw the most snaps here in this New York Jets backfield. He had the most targets in this offense this past week. He's an elite level running back prospect. I'm hoping they continue to expand his role and continue to scale back Michael Carter Jr. But our last two guys back-to-back are going to be Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. With Zeke and Pollard, very bad offense. Going up against Washington, I don't love the matchup. I know Pollard looks like the better running back. It doesn't matter. Ezekiel Elliott still has the workload. It's still a very bad offense where they're splitting the work 50-50. Once Dak Prescott's back, I mean, you are going to be in a much better spot with both guys. But I think that should be it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And of course, go check out Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, you can check out all these player props. When you use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And only for people who use promo code FLOCK are you going to get this special line on Cooper Kupp this weekend over under half a receiving yard. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. Thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day, and I hope we get to see you with the live stream tonight.